sending a robot into space. It's gone! What's gone? The Golden Oviraptor Fossil! I mean, a Golden Oviraptor Fossil sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? So I wonder what happened there. We'll find out in a bit. First, let's meet someone who's mad about fossils. Oh, and by the way, we're in the future in this story. 2,000 years in the future. So try and imagine that for starters, and let's meet Amebem was a cyborg. Cyborgs are half human and half robot, and in the future, it wasn't a good thing to be. Cyborgs did all the boring and yucky jobs so the remaining humans could swan about eating nice food and having naps. You really wouldn't want to be Amebem, because his voice communicator was broken, and his joints were rusting, and so he'd gotten given the most rubbish job of all, clearing the toilets in the last remaining museum. If he could talk, he would say that he didn't mind the job much because the museum was filled with interesting things, and he loved all the dinosaur fossils, and he spent his time quietly working by day and studying by night. The head curator, a human called Ellery Marsh, was kind to him and let him read all the ancient books in the museum library. Humans didn't bother with books anymore, so no one disturbed him. There was huge excitement one day when news came of the Golden Oviraptor Fossil, the first dinosaur fossil found in centuries. It had fossilized for so long it had turned to pure gold and had become the most valuable object on the planet. It was placed under high security at the museum, and people came from miles around to see it, and billionaires bartered to make it their own. Of course, Amebem was interested too. When the doors had closed for the night, he came closer to the fossil surrounded by security lasers. Closer and closer. And then an alarming beep began in his sensors. Beep, beep, again and again, and he knew what he had to do. Later that night, when the last of the other workers had left, in the shadowy grandeur of the Galactic Heritage Museum, Amebem deployed his grappling hook with a silent hiss, latching onto the ornate ceiling, 30 meters above. His feet, equipped with high-tech suction boots, adhered to the cool vertical surface of the marble wall as he ascended with the agility of a spider. Below him, laser tripwires crisscrossed the dimly lit room in a deadly lattice of light, guarding the display that housed the ancient, invaluable fossil. Timing his movements to match the rhythmic pulse of the security lasers, he reached the display case. With a swift, calculated motion, he disabled the alarm with a miniature EMP device and lifted the fossil, its ancient contours glowing faintly under his touch. Reactivating his grappling hook, he whisked himself towards the skylight, dodging the sweeping beams of security drones that erupted into activity too late, their sensors scrambling to catch the sleek silhouette vanishing into the starlit sky. The alarm went up, and Amebem was in trouble. Big trouble. "Look at the security cameras. It's that scrawny little robot boy. He stole it!" It was the chief interrogator, on the scene and absolutely furious. "But why would he do that?" said Ellery Marsh. "Amebem's never done anything like this before," she said, dismayed to think of her cyborg buddy doing something bad, but the evidence was there. "Well," said the chief interrogator, "cyborgs have been jealous of all natural history for centuries. He probably thinks if he destroys the evidence, people will forget about humans entirely, and then it will be their turn to take charge." This soon turned into the story that everyone was talking about. The evil, envious cyborg, intent on destroying humans' history. Was it true? We'll have to find out, but first, we have to find Amebem. It turns out he was hiding against the wires of the rocket launch quad, clutching the fossil and darting out of the swooping security lights. When it was safe, he used his grappling hook to scale the fences, and then with his suction boots made his way up the side of the main launch building. The rocket poised for launch was for the richest man on the planet, Edgar Trench, who, rather than spending his money to, make the world a better place, had decided to go into space, just so that he could be the first person to play a banjo in space. I mean, that's pretty rubbish. But the worst thing was, he wasn't a very good banjo player. That's billionaires for you. Now, he should have been making his way to the launch pad ready for his special trip into space, but where he actually ended up was locked in a stinky toilet, thanks to a very small cyborg. Stealing his spacesuit, which was about 6 times too big, Amebem sauntered to the launch pad in Edgar's place. And as everyone looks the same in a spacesuit, he managed to slip into the craft. Edgar, of course, was absolutely fuming. "Get me out of here!" He yelled and yelled and yelled, but the rocket launches are very loud, and so no one heard him, I'm afraid. 3, 2, 1, lift off, and whoosh! The little cyborg on the Fossil were on their way into orbit. It wasn't long before ground control had found Edgar Trent locked in the toilets and the alarm went off. The mission director held his head in his hands as he quizzed the space team. "So you mean we've just sent a silly little cyborg into space instead of the richest man on Earth?" Technically, yes. Technically. Actually, yes. In the world's most expensive spacecraft. Yes, and well, it's actually not just a cyborg. Go on. Actually, it's a cyborg who's in possession of the Golden Oviraptor Fossil. Right. So we've sent the world's most precious fossil into space on the world's most expensive rocket. Well, don't just stand there, go and get him! The chase was on. In the vast, cold expanse of space, Amebem careened through an asteroid belt, his ship's hull scraping dangerously close to jagged rocks that hurtled past like bullets. The cyborg's vessel, a sleek armoured runner crafted from the dark titanium alloys, was built for speed and stealth, but even it struggled against the relentless pursuit of the United Earth Fleet. Behind him, a squadron of sleek fighter ships, piloted by the finest of the human army, blazed through the void, their hulls emblazoned with the emblem of the Earth Alliance. These were the Peregrine-class Inceptors, designed to hunt and capture with lethal efficiency. Their weapons system locked onto Amebem's ship. "Return to Earth immediately or face the consequences," they transmitted. But no answer came. The battle was on. As the space around him blazed with laser fire, Amebem executed a series of dazzling maneuvers, weaving through asteroids, using them as shields against the relentless volley. The cyborg's reflexes were inhuman, his ship responding with the precision of thought, dodging and weaving through space debris in the deadly dance of the chase. Meanwhile, back at the museum, Ellery March, the curator and the little cyborg's friend, was working late. She was determined to find out why Amebem had done what he did, and so was poring through the books she had been reading. The answer was there, in black and white, and then she understood. There was no time to lose. She knew the United Earth Fleet would stop at nothing to bring Amebem down, but now she knew why he had taken the fossil. She called Mission Control and breathlessly explained, That fossil, it contains a virus. Yeah, one from the pre-Cambrian era. Within weeks it's lethal to humans but harmless to cyborgs. It says in one of the ancient texts that a Golden Oviraptor fossil was originally found many centuries ago, and once its deadly powers were discovered, it was buried deeper than any fossil ever, so it would never be discovered again. If we only read the old books, we would have known. Oh. So he wasn't trying to erase our history then? He was trying to save the future. That's right! Call off the chase! Just as the fleet commander, Captain Vivara, gave the order to fire the final missile that would turn Amebem's ship into space dust, her communication officer intercepted an urgent transmission. The message was from the Galactic Archaeological Society, and it was marked with the highest priority. Cease fire! Cease fire! The target is not hostile. Repeat, the cyborg is not a threat. The fossil he carries is contaminated, deadly to humans. He's trying to save us. Captain Vivara, with a swift hand gesture, aborted the missile launch sequence. Her face, usually a mask of resolve and command, betrayed a moment of confusion and relief. She opened a direct line to the cyborg. Amebem, This is Captain Vivara of the United Earth Fleet. We will stand down, eject the fossil, and we will escort you home. Amebem was relieved, and as instructed, set the fossil into the garbage chute, and poof! It was safely sent into the blackness of the universe. And on his return to Earth, he received a hero's welcome. Edgar Trench, the billionaire who'd been looking forward to playing the banjo in space, was the only one not happy. After all, on top of missing his flight and being locked in a stinky toilet, he had been the top bidder for the fossil, and he didn't seem to understand that he wouldn't have been the owner for very long. But Amebem was happy to be safely back on Earth and to have saved the humans. They weren't so bad. Especially Ellery, who rewarded Amebem by doing a really cool thing and writing an actual book about all his daring deeds, which was placed proudly in the museum library, so that his story could be told across the centuries to come. How cool is that? And that's the story of sending a robot into space. I hope you liked it. Would you like to go into space, or have a book written about you? At least with StoryQuest you can have a story written for you, and that's nearly as cool if you ask me. Thank you to Benjamin, who came up with the character of Amebem, and loads more ideas with it too. Thank you, Benjamin. Everything from the grappling hook to the fossil, the contaminated fossil. Thank you so much for that. All added to the brilliant story idea this week from Enzo. Got an idea for a story? Tell us the title at funkidslive.com/storyquest and we could bring your story to life. For a new story each week, make sure you hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode.